I had recently led a crusade to dictate public morals. I was not known for my liberal views or my insistence on the independence of the judiciary. She was drawn to my metal file cabinets and my porcelain dinnerware. We both objected strongly to the widespread abuse of three-piece bistros. She had startling new scientific evidence that the papacy was involved. Together we saluted the cast iron stoves of our ancestors. And I stared at the zip-out linings.
Hi there, colleagues, around the Big H and around the globe. Here it is, the 20th of September in the year of our Lord 2025, and this is a new edition of, well, you know what this is a new edition of, right? Well, Paul Colby and the investigators are back. I'm Paul Colby. I brought three terrific investigators along with me so that you could find out the stories behind the stories behind the stories, which is what we always do here on this program. Let me first of all introduce one of the most amazing entrepreneurial demons, well, maybe I shouldn't call him that I have ever had the pleasure of knowing, and that would be Hugh Dunnett. Hugh is, in case you did not know, the director of America First or Second. He is also a homeless engineer working on the problem of orbital nutrition. I'll ask him I know why he's homeless. I won't ask him that, it's embarrassing. He is also the current director of the Foundation for Foundation Repair. Now, Hugh, tell me why it is that you are directing an organization that talks about America first or second.
Well, before we get there, boss, remember it's not homeless. It's unhomed.
Okay, unhomed.
Yes, please. We unhomed people are very very adamant about labels. Pejorative labels are not good these days.
I'm sorry, I didn't
But
mean
as far
to be,
as America first or second, which is the question
didn't
you
mean
asked
to be
me.
pejorative.
Yeah, well, it's
Okay.
It happens. But as far as America first or second, what's in a name? Would a rose not smell as sweet with a different name? So first, second, and again, where warfare and trade wars and all that are evolving. So there's no more first, second. There's no more winners and losers. There's just participation trophies. So that's pretty much our movement in a nutshell.
So you homeless engineers, I suppose, are behind that, but you're also behind this study of orbital nutrition. Now, how did that come about?
That's a really interesting story, boss. When I was in Catholic school, we had a lot of vegetables went bad because they always told us eat your vegetables because people in India are starving. But anyway. That's neither here nor there.
So a lot
of the vegetables went bad. So I looked into how we could, for instance, rancid avocados are very unappetizing. So I looked into how we could fix that. And what we found out originally was going to be a way to dispose of them, to shoot them into orbit, and eventually they'd burn up in the atmosphere. But we found out the cosmic rays, which you're familiar with, actually interacted with the fructose, sucrose, and amino acids in the vegetable and converted them back to their original state. So it's quite a remarkable achievement.
Okay, now this Foundation for Foundation Repair, I can see why that would be critical, because so many of the homes here in America, well, the foundation is not what it should be, even with some of the new homes. And so I guess when you deal with foundation repair in homes, you're doing a big service.
Yeah, that's true.
For-
That's actually one of the chief causes of so much people being unhomed is poor foundations. Which is, I know you didn't want me to talk about that, but had I had a solid foundation, I would not be one of the unhomed. But what I did is I followed the money, which is always a good thing to do. You do that quite frequently. You follow my money, I know.
Yes.
And it turns out it's the foundations of the form of government.
Well, I can accept that the foundations of our form of government are probably needing some attention because, I mean, I see attacks every day on this.
I'm sorry, boss. The slide, I misspoke. What it is we're focusing on the farms of government.
Our farm of
government, yes.
So do they have anything to do with this orbital nutrition problem you've been talking about? I mean, what I understood is that because of tariffs and other things that drive prices up, that you won't find in the produce department some of the things you used to, or if you, well, like for example in this slide, it looks to me like this avocado it's actually a potato with an avocado kind of painting over the.
I'm not seeing that at all, boss. I don't know what organization you belong to that's anti. That looks perfectly like an avocado to me. I'm just not seeing it. And as far as tariffs, we're forming a new cost organization that will prove that tariffs actually reduce prices.
I, as a vegetarian, I always look for the plant-based things in the grocery store, and this label that I'm seeing now about paint-based, I think I may have confused it with plant-based and bought some avocados that were actually potatoes. I guess you're saying I must be mistaken?
Well, boss, to tell you the truth, as always, you're right on top of things, and you've exposed the fraud that I'm sadly guilty of promoting, that we do in fact have paint-based vegetables.
As long as we're admitting things, you are an agent for certain writers, and I understand you're responsible for an entire new genre which is called nonfiction. So some of the nuns that taught you in high school are now writing, well, like for example, this one here, Sister Lucy Berta. I understand that you had a discussion with her and she said she had a book in her and you told her to go to the doctor and the doctor took some x-rays and he said, I can't find a book. So you told her to write one.
Yeah, it took a while to get the book out of her, but yeah, she eventually, after appropriate
and she is talking about her affair with Ned Zeppelin, that rock star guy.
Yeah, he's a very world famous bass player, but we're trying to keep that affair kind of a low key, maybe KG or something.
There's another book, Nuns of the Above. I guess there's a story behind that too, because Sister Greta Flusher, she claims to be able to levitate. Is she a mechanic or what?
She claims a lot of things under the
she used to work at AutoZone before she went to the nunnery.
With appropriate edibles, she pretty much claims a lot of things.
Let me ask you another nun that you're familiar with. Claims to have been in the NFL, what can I call it? Professional football. Sister Eula Combo said that she was a formidable defensive lineman.
Well,
woman.
She exaggerates a little bit, boss. Her association with the pro football was mainly let's just say she's been in a lot of pro football locker rooms.
How come she's driving a tractor on the cover of the book?
Well, it was the only prop we had, so what else could we do, Okay,
just one more I wanted to ask you about. Sister Becky, I guess you call her, has written a book, said she, things I shouldn't remember. That's because nuns, she's not talking about when she used to smoke 12 packs a day.
No, we got her out of that habit. She's mainly talking about some interaction with me, sadly, that I don't think I ought to go into.
Let's not go there. I know a lot about you.
Yeah,
agents.
You know a little bit more about me than any human should possibly.
I have
know.
another investigator I want you to meet. Thank you very much for your time there, Hugh. Donna Trumpet is a formidable force, any way that you look at it. She is, first of all, serving currently on the Federal Preserve Board, and she has a career as a lawyer for the statistically insignificant. As far as I know, she still does some work as an advocate for better health through plumbing. Donna Trumpet, could we have your attention for just a minute?
I was listening. I was definitely listening. I was not asleep.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
What I wanted to ask you first is about your famous ancestor, a distant trumpet. That would be Cecil. He's way back in your family ancestry, but he's famous for quite a lot. In fact, we have a slide of when he was performing at one of these jazz clubs years ago, and I think what amazes me, first of all, Cecil Trumpet didn't invent the trumpet. He invented the slide trombone, right?
Yes, we prefer not to discuss that, though. That's a
okay. Now look, this is back
slightly less classy instrument.
Okay,
yes.
This is back in the 20s, and it says the tickets were $500, which I think would be a lot of money in this day and age. Is that why Cecil didn't really make a big killing? That nobody could afford the $500.
Well, I believe I'm done answering these questions about Cecil. May we move on?
Okay, let's talk about this book you wrote. You wrote a book called The Magic of Guilt, and I can't help but wonder what inspired you to write that.
Well, the fact that they were all secretly guilty, and well, the ones who weren't, they were Catholic, so they believed they were guilty. And honestly, who isn't a little or a lot guilty?
You know, so you also wrote a book, one that well, I can't say how many times I've read it, but it was called Awakening the Inner Sinner. And, well, I guess you don't have anything to say about that either, right?
No, I'd have to discuss that with my lawyer first.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
Cryptocurrency is what you do these days. You invented the sucker Bitcoin, right?
Yes, who doesn't love a delicious lollipop now and again?
And
so
and are you making?
if you want to be a sucker, I'm your gal. Yes.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me ask you. You seem to be involved with naming certain beans. Now, first of all, I don't understand why these beans don't have names, and I guess I also wonder why it's important that we name them anyway. I mean, they're not even things that he would send into space,
Well,
right?
Everything needs a name. I mean, look at Pepe. We love that frog, lovable little scamp. Yeah, the right loves their Pepe.
They all need a name.
Could you imagine Pepe without a name? What would we call him then?
Okay, well, what about, you also have worms testifying before Congress. I mean, these are unnamed worms, as far as I know. I mean, I watched the testimony. I don't think the guy ever gave his name, a guy or a girl or whatever that worm is.
They have names. They're tremendous names. I assure you, they have names.
You just don't want to share them with me right now.
Yeah, we'll go with that. We'll go with that.
Okay, your role with the Nuclear Lunar Advocacy Group. I guess they want to put nuclear plants on the moon. And I guess you know a little bit about that. But is it true that Laura Lunar is the one that got this ball rolling?
Yes.
She works for you, right?
Yes, she does. She's one of the many, many fine people. I have only the finest people working for me. And Laura she's tremendous. She's wonderful.
She's been
very
to
smart,
the moon.
very lovely.
Been to the moon.
She's been to the moon, and she understands that we need
Understands plants,
Mm-hmm.
names beans.
and that we need to establish nuclear dominance on the moon because the bacteria on Pluto or XKL 6813, we don't know if they're coming for our cilantro. We don't know what they're coming for. So we need to establish ourselves first on the moon.
So that's why you've got a 50% tariff on cilantro from even nearby countries.
Yes, because we will punish the enemies that are trying to charge us
Enemies of
too
our
much for
solar
cilantro.
system, for example.
Yes. We
Okay,
have
that's-
many, so many. We have the most enemies.
Is that painted cilantro?
That's
Natural cilantro.
I don't think we want to get into that right now. I mean, I had some cilantro the other day that was purple, and I didn't ask any questions. Okay. I have another investigator with me tonight, and his name is Chet GTP. I like to call him Chet because that's his name. Chet is the inventor of the meme, and I think also he claims to be the inventor of the editorial plural. I first found out about him because he was teaching binge posting at the Collect College, and then I learned that even though I try to pay my investigators a living wage, he went to work for the Plump administration, and I guess he'll tell you why. Now, when you were inventing the meme, I mean, why did you invent the meme? Or is that the question I should be asking?
Did you ever see the image of the distracted boyfriend? He looks over his shoulder, there's a woman in a red dress. That was we. Did you ever see the image of a woman in a restaurant screaming at a cat? That was we as well. That cat was fed from childhood, from pussyhood, on the tears of forlorn liberals. And have you ever experienced a Rickroll?
I can't say that I have.
We employ offshore troll farms who create the watermarks indicating made in America for each one of those moments.
That's a lot like the ones that say paint-based, I guess. Binge posting at the Collect College, is that something that you just had to do, or because you were out of money, or because you wanted to say things?
I was young and ghoulish.
Okay. I think we were all young once.
But you asked about my work for the Plump administration.
Yes, I was about to ask about that. I know that one of the things you did when you started advising them was that they should destroy all of those nasty Epstein files. And
well, let's start with the president's affection for the petrochemical industry. With my own affinity for flaring, as you see on my chest, I was appointed to the head of the Department of National Gaslighting. Now, as far as destroying things, something I have an affinity for myself, Obviously, we started with the birth certificate of a former president in Hawaii. And given that this president has never had cause to walk back anything, we told the GSA, General Services Administration, to get rid of its now obsolete pedometers, you know? Or as this cabinet calls them, pedometers.
I guess I follow you, but I probably shouldn't be following.
Not too closely. I have work to do.
Yeah, not when you're heavily armed. Some of these files now that you had people destroy, I understand some were like shredded into little bitty pieces of paper that you sent to our farm of government. I don't know what they did with them. Others you had them stir fried or baked.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right.
Permanent press in the dryer. You have to look at the tag.
Okay. Now, you obviously, once you were in your position of authority, you started advising world leaders. You advised world leaders on the wisdom of the Trump administration policies. Am I right?
Well,
Or you tried, I mean, we have a picture, so I mean, there's no getting around it. You did try to convince the world leaders about the wisdom of the policies.
Well, this president likes to fly by the seat of his pants. You know, he literally places them in the front row of Air Force One, walks about the cabin. It's those very same boxes that are going to be featured on the White House lawn next year for the celebration of America. The brawl on the mall, Capital City Rage Parade, the smackdown in the old crack town. Should look forward.
Okay, I guess to promote all of these things that are coming in the future, you had to talk to Congress. So first you told the people in Congress to stop talking to their constituents at the town halls,
Yes,
right?
that is obsolete. All the town halls are canceled. They're too far away anyway. We remind them of the quote from the great Abraham Lincoln that we are a government of the sequel, buying off the people, and unaffordable unless you're evil. However, Dallas is an interesting example.
Yeah, we not only do we have your original slide, but we have the sign that was put up in Dallas. So that first you said the town halls are canceled, and then you went to Dallas and you put up some signs.
Well, we're looking forward to pitching Mark Cuban the opportunity to own 10% of our civil liberties suspension zones for an investment of just $7.5 billion.
How did that, I guess a lot of people went along with that?
It only has to be Mark Cuban, and we're still waiting. The guy's a piston.
Okay, none of this, as far as I can tell, really changed the minds of the public. So then you had to resort to telling people that there were crises taking place, right? I mean, first you told them not to vote on anything. That's what you told people in Congress, just don't vote on it. And then you actively went after these distractions. Like the first one that I'm familiar with, you said that there were badgers in American cities, so you would have to send in federal troops.
I told the president that we don't need them. They
Don't
stink.
need the badgers?
We don't need the badgers. They stink.
Okay, and then the next crisis was claiming that we were running short of toilet paper because, I mean, I guess a lot of people panicked when they heard that, right?
Suffice to say, in the throne room, it's 2-ply for the tan guy.
Okay. I guess the whole point of all of this was to say that there were convicted melons all over America, and your administration had to do something about it.
We had to be convincing of a certain senator or two. We have ways.
Okay, and one of the ways that you tried to convince people, you had some clown testify before Congress, as I remember it. That didn't go down well either, did it?
About as well as the alcohol we had to ply him with, then we sent him back to the Pentagon.
Okay. I think that's enough from my esteemed colleague Chet. I'd like to talk for a minute about, well, talk for the next little while about some issues. First of all, some national issues. The first one, you'll recall that there was a really long cabinet meeting that Donald Trump had the other day, and as for why it was so long, I guess he wants more cabinets. So the first one we saw, I stopped watching it got pretty boring. The first one was normal, then the second one was some lady who had a bunch of lizards in her cabinet, and I guess the president was kind of moved by that. I mean, he did move a little bit, but the one that I didn't understand, one of your gray aliens, you know, a reptilian sort, had a bathroom remodel type shower stall that he just displayed it during this cabinet meeting. I don't think they were looking for a new shower stall, were they? You know anything about that?
Well, the shower stall, yes, it was absolutely necessary. Every penny that was spent in that bathroom was necessary. Especially, the cabinets were deemed by some to be excessive. But, you know, what's in the cabinets? You need one to hold your copies of Art of the Deal. You need one to hold your extra toilet paper. You need a drawer to keep your burgers warm. And more, you need some to hold the files you tried to flush down the toilet.
Repellents.
Yes, multiple types of repellents. All the cabinets are necessary. It's a tremendous design. Tremendous.
Okay. In addition to the cabinet meeting, we saw the government saying they were going to change the name of the Department of Defense to the War Department. And I think the impetus for this was Mr. Trump saying that he stopped 7 wars, or 8, or I mean the number kept changing. One of these wars that they talked about was the so-called Spaghetti War. I think that there were some housewives who complained that they were getting tomato sauce, or, well, most of the spaghetti sauce these days is tomato sauce that's been painted.
A lot of those are ex-nuns, and as you know, ex-nuns complain about everything. So.
Yeah, well, they went to war just like the Sun Devils who went to war with used car dealers. I didn't understand what that war was about. I mean, I guess Sun Devils are paying too much for their used cars, and then there was some lazy beatnik, I guess. There was a paper story about it in the Palm Beach Gazette, that this lazy, sort of a beatnik, he was a millionaire, but he was a beatnik, and he declared war on several countries. I'm not sure what, but
he's an attractive guy, though, I must say.
I think he used to play bass in one of the rock groups. But you see, this was all, as far as I can tell, this was all just loose talk, because the administration was actually declaring war on the states and the localities. For example, this kind of gives it away. Trump said that in the beginning, he had gone to the trouble of removing the Pope from Chicago, and he called him Pope Francis, but we know that it was actually Pope Leo who was in Chicago at some point. And whether he had to be moved, I don't know. I realized that he did later go to the White House for lunch, and he was complaining that some of the things served for lunch appeared to be painted. Painted.
It's a work in progress, boss. You know,
avocados
we'll get there.
and things like that. Well, but as for this war on Chicago, for example, the people of Chicago didn't like the idea of an administration coming in. So first, they tried to misdirect the troops by putting up signs that gave directions to Chicago that were inaccurate, very much inaccurate. That didn't work, however. So the next thing they did, and this is kind of a radical step, they moved Chicago so that the troops couldn't find it. In fact, we have, right here, you see our satellite photo showing that there's nothing there anymore.
It still won 12 Tony Awards.
It
Still won 12 Tony Awards.
Okay, all right. You have a point, but
You know, they actually really, really love Trump in Chicago, despite all the numerous reports to the contrary. I'm telling you, they really love him in Chicago.
is that why he sent the troops looking for the south part of Chicago? I mean, I think he was confused about that other TV show, South Park, but he sent them looking for the south part. Is that where he is mostly loved?
There were no troops that I'm aware of. There are in fact no troops. Perhaps they're just visiting. They're just tourists.
Okay, well, apparently there were some troops or maybe they're ICE agents at the new ballroom that's being built. Does anybody know what was going on there? Because all the stories that I've looked at.
You're asking us to report on our ballroom?
Yeah. Okay. By the way, those things aren't plugged in, are they? Okay, fine. Anyway, people, despite what you say, people are so upset that they're starting to throw sandwiches at the troops. And you've probably seen pictures of that in the news, but it's got to the point where to improve or impress the threat, so that people believe it, they have now revised the fines for throwing particular kinds of sandwiches at particular kinds of troops. Now, Hugh, I know you follow sports a lot. That looks to me like a menu that's based on something you'd see at a soccer game or something.
Well, that's possibly true, but I mean, I do want to go on record as saying throwing sandwiches is a very nasty habit, and we should be using the vegetables in those sandwiches to put into orbit.
One of the books by Sister Berta, I think, mentions her old habit of throwing sandwiches because they used to have food fights at the convent.
Yeah, they're a bunch of
And
fun-loving gals, I tell you.
And is that how you got to study orbital nutrition?
Yeah, at some point we threatened to put one of the sisters into orbit, and that just naturally evolved into vegetables.
Okay,
she was struggling a little bit. So,
right. I understand. Ghislaine Maxwell was one of the people that you were going to put in orbit, but when she talked to the president's prior lead counsel, his lead counsel, she apparently committed cosmetic perjury. Okay? I hate to tell you this bad news here, but she did, and as a result of that, the folks who are being detained at the alligator facility in Florida, They said, we need some of these amenities like she gets going to one of the fancy, summer camp prisons. So now they have yoga classes at the alligator facility. And that's not all. They finally have installed air conditioning there, which they were lacking before. And if that's not enough, they demanded that somebody fix the plumbing. Somebody fix the plumbing.
Well, you realize our executive tends to, he's a little heavy on the flush handle. He's only lectured 30 times about the way documents might be disposed, and the 13 flushes that seem to make the White House.
Well, it's not just a question of flushing. I understand you have proposed in some of your written materials, your articles, that plumbing is actually the secret to better
Yes.
health.
As I mentioned in my book, Better Health Through Plumbing, some people, as you know, are just colonically gifted, and they may have to flush a few more times than others.
This seems to go on and on. John Bolton, who used to work for the president, had his home raided by the administration. Now, when the FBI was through raiding his home, they paraded his collection of mustaches. I'm not sure what we're supposed to take from that, other than he was willing to pretend to have any number of hair growths that were not his own.
I would take some grooming products if I was there.
Okay, I see you're well equipped, but a lot of people think, well, if John Bolton can be raided, then I should be raided too, because I'm equally important, and it's kind of a badge of honor to be raided by the current administration. So now the Department of Homes, Land, and Security has given out an application so that people who want to be raided can be, possibly, if they're on the list. I mean, there's a waiting list, right?
Right.
I'm rated a level 5 flight delay up by TSA.
Okay.
Most of the convents I know have applied to be in the waiting list, boss. Just a little insider info for you.
You know, these days you can even be arrested. You can be arrested for keeping well informed. In fact, we've seen some people being arrested, and all I can say is they have approved that you can still read the New York Post. And I think there's a couple of others you can read.
Yeah, there's Irrational Geographic is one I'm familiar with.
Irrational Geographic. You know, somehow I think those people, I think they were involved in gerrymandering in Texas, but I'm not there yet.
And then there's
Gerrymandering, he's a good friend of mine.
I know. I've had him.
I
on
love
the
his
show.
ice cream.
I've had him on the show before. The jobs reports that have been coming out, I know that your boss doesn't like them. A lot of people don't like the jobs report because what they say is there aren't any more human jobs left, except for a couple. I was reading this in Tech Talk, a magazine that I read, and I could be, facing a jail term for reading something like that. But I understand, first of all, the diaper sales are up right now. I can't tell you why that is. It's a booming industry. Not only that, musical garden hoses are just flying off the shelf, and some people they're even claiming that they made a lot of money selling these musical water hoses because of what they can do for our vegetable friends.
Yeah, they're the new farms of government are prolific buyers of musical, but what they like is the department has a strong preference for musical hoses with a good downbeat.
One of the biggest areas where there has been job growth is tractor repair. I guess that's because our farm of government uses quite a few tractors. In fact, that looks like the tractor that one of your nun artists was driving.
Yeah, I think that, tell you the truth, boss, that's definitely the same tractor. That's interesting. We wondered where it went. It went missing. So I guess the Farm Bureau is
okay,
stealing from convents now.
See,
That's
we solved a mystery right there on this show. We talked about national news for enough time here already. Let's talk briefly about state news. And when I talk about state news, the first thing that comes to mind is redistricting in Texas. In fact, see this map? This shows what happened to my voting precinct. I'm no longer represented by the person who was representing me before. And I think in the picture there you can even see the ship channel in that picture. Now, because of this redistricting, a lot of Democrats left the state briefly, but it wasn't just those Democrats in the Texas House and Senate. It was a whole lot of people from Texas.
That looks like the exodus from the Home Depot parking lot. No wonder they can't get any plumbers to install things. So.
Yeah, there's new laws in Texas supposedly to deal with a lot of problems like that. But one of the things I don't understand is trying to get rid of Democrats, which Ken Paxton wants to do by force of law. I don't think he's going to succeed in that. But one thing that they have done with new laws is to deal with the problem with phones in school, but apparently they screwed up something, and the laws are about schools in the phone.
I was told that it was actually no xylophones in school, because when children are trying to learn about Jesus converting the dinosaurs, they don't need to be hearing the dingle-ding going on in the background all the time. It's distracting, highly distracting.
I guess that explains it, doesn't it?
Yep.
And then another Texas law is protections for bass players. We have mentioned some of the problems that bass players have, but I don't know what we can do in Texas to make it safe for these bass players.
Well, they need to be protected. They struggle with songs to do, which of course we abbreviate STD, so we need to protect bass players from
STD,
songs to do.
That somehow I'm thinking that's familiar for some reason.
Well, boss, we're not supposed to discuss my regimen of antibacterials.
Okay.
We agreed to that.
That's the news in the state. There's also news about celebrities. I have heard that Taylor's getting hitched, but it turns out it's not the Taylor that you might be thinking about. It's just some Taylor in Camden, New Jersey, I think, who finally is getting hitched
Is he getting hitched or stitched? I've heard two different stories.
Stapled.
Yeah, he's getting stapled. That's it. Another aspect of celebrity news, some of the women who work in the Trump administration are taking up another career. They're releasing CDs. For example, some woman named Christy has a new record. The single is called, it's a rework of Leaving on a Jet Plane, but I think the CD is called Gnome Depot. And then Pam Bondage, who you may know about, she has a new CD. It's called He Told Me What to Say. My favorite track there is her singing "I'm All Tied Up in Court," and the other one that I like a lot, "You Can Tell Me," which is kind of catchy.
It's just one song fest after another with
It
her.
it really is.
She doesn't have a bass player though, which I find disconcerting. But
Well, okay, and then Caroline's Party Line CD, that also has a potential big hit on it. It's the new version of Kumbaya. Now, for the Trump administration, the lyrics have been changed. I like the refrain about "Come buy a pair of golden shoes," or "Come buy a Bible with the Constitution in it." I love it. I sing along with it every time I hear it.
there's also Come By. I've heard there's Come By a Bitcoin, which is actually sponsored by Melvanka Trump. So.
Okay. I should mention, all of these Trump ladies who now have CDs, they were going to do cameo appearances in the new Final Tap movie, but the problem is they don't actually play instruments, they just are instruments. Anyway, TV, while we're talking about celebrities, I want to talk about some of these things you'll see on TV today in the way of ads. And they always say, you have to buy this before the powers that be try to take it down. So for example, there's one I've seen about picking lottery numbers by taking pictures of your tomatoes. Does that make any sense? I mean,
it makes
who-
as much sense as any other of these so-called systems to pick lottery
I'm not
numbers,
sure
but-
who would want to be taking that down, unlocking the secret to that picture. Anyway,
Is that a real tomato or a painted tomato, boss? Can
I
you
think
tell?
it's a painted tomato. I never trust anything to be the real thing, but some of you probably have a veranda that's too big. If you have a veranda that's too big, there's also a TV ad right now, the secret to shrinking that veranda that's too big. Well, I'll have to admit I was curious, and so I paid the $19.95 before they took it down. And it turns out that the way that your too big veranda gets shrunk is that you have to reduce the size of the rest of your house so that the veranda no longer looks too big.
Well, that's
Turns out that would be pretty expensive.
Well, that's a bit of a ripoff, boss. Sorry you wasted money on what you can do with the veranda if it's too big. They're like sweaters, okay? You wash the veranda in hot water, and then you go after it with a hair dryer, and it's just like putting a sweater in the dryer. It shrinks it.
Every time I engage an official, I insist that he reads me my veranda rights.
How's that working? For
That
you?
sounds like a more efficient method, don't you think?
Yeah, how's that working for you?
I'm working for them.
Yeah.
Another ad I see on TV way too much is the one about wolverines, how to protect your home from wolverines using a Swedish Army trick. After I got burned with the last one, I was able to resist spending $24.99 to find out the Swedish Army trick. You probably know what it is.
Yes, it's
But-
that tiny little corkscrew that it's hard to pull out. Yep.
I mean, to me, those wolverines look a lot like the badgers that were claimed to be a threat to American cities.
Well, I think as far as protecting yourself from wolverines, the little known fact is the proceeds from that actually go to Woody Hayes' estate, and good things are done with it. So it's that's one I'll actually think is okay to put a little money into, because he was
Okay, well,
he was such an outstanding individual.
I can't argue. I mean, I could argue with you, but I can't. I mean, it's in the contract for the show.
That's right.
Okay.
That will cost you some more money. if
This
you argue.
this last one, I just have to ask if anybody else has been curious. There is an ad so that you can get the esophagus you've always dreamed of. Now, I had a dream about my esophagus the other day, and I can't even, I mean, I'm embarrassed to even talk about it. I know one of your nun writers devoted an entire chapter to the kind of esophagus that she dreamed of.
She not only dreamed of it using transcendental meditation, she was actually physically able to transform her esophagus into her ideal esophagus.
So even though one of your nuns didn't really have a book in her, another one of your nuns really did have an esophagus in her.
That's interesting. I had not thought of that before. But once again, you're on top of this thing, boss.
Let me just make
Did you
one.
see the size of the model in that ad? Way too fat. Failing magazine. That esophagus was enormous.
It was huge.
It was huge. Huge.
Don't you think that the irrational geographic people had something to do with that? And
I thought that was Vogue. I thought their standards had really gone downhill after that debacle over the publisher.
What's your take on esophagus? Do you staple esophaguses as well?
I do collect
Or is
them.
it esophagi? I don't know which.